Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. You may not even recognize this tree, it's changed so much. This is my Bald Cypress. I last pruned this tree on June 3rd of this year, and it was a small kind of compact tree then. And it's certainly grown. Here is a look at the tree. So what happened is this was my intended leader here, right down there, and it kind of, it got kind of tall and heavy, and the wind blew it, and it kind of made it go crooked. So instead of growing that as the leader, it shot up another one here. And when I say shot up, well, this has grown since June 3rd, and you can see how tall it is. I mean, it's right up to here. Incredible fast growth. It's getting some nice buttressing at the root base here. I repotted this tree every year for 2 years in a row, working on the roots. And the root base was really nice when I potted it up in spring of this year. So today I'm going to prune it back. And if I wanted to grow this into a big tree, well, it's pretty easy to do. You just let them grow. But that is not my goal. My goal for this tree has always been to try and get all the characteristics of a mature bald cypress into as small a tree as possible. And it's going to be quite a challenge, but I'm going to keep trying. So ideally, I probably should have pruned this upright leader a little earlier, but it was kind of in the back of my my bonsai grow area, and it was sitting in a tray of water, and I was just making sure the water was topped up every day to keep the tree nicely hydrated. And before I know it, it had grown like this, and it happened very quickly. So yeah, so I'm going to do a lot of corrective work today, probably a lot of pretty big cuts on it to get it back to a small tree. I'm going to begin the pruning work now. So you can see there's been some fairly major cuts here, and there's a bit of a bulge here, but it's not too bad. And then I was transitioning this new leader from kind of the thick trunk to try and get some taper in the tree, and you can see it's done that quite nicely. So my first step, I'm going to prune off the original leader here of the tree. I don't want a branch this thick growing up. So here I go. This one's coming right off. Like that. So a pretty big branch. And you can see this branch looks nice and healthy. The leader, it must have dried out one day, and it's a little crispy at the edges of some of the leaves, but generally it's pretty healthy. I'm going to prune back these lower branches to some leaflets using directional pruning. So if you look at the branch here, there's some needles, kind of just single needles by themselves. And it's possible, at the base of each of this needle, there may be a bud, a dormant bud. But I'm going to be a little safer, and I'm going to prune to this downward frond out here. So here I go, big cut coming up. Taking the end off that branch, like that. And I'll do the same for the next branch here. I've got a frond here, nothing back further. I've got some out here, so I'll use this downward facing frond, prune it off there. And then I've got right above that branch, I have another branch and one over here. This one's directly above this one, and this one is kind of directly above this one. So not ideal branch pruning. If you look from the side view, there's nothing growing out the other direction, but I'm hoping that comes with time. So I've got to decide, well, what branches do I want to keep? So I'm definitely going to keep this one, and I think this is a good branch, but I don't need the one above here, so that's coming off like that. And then I've got to decide, do I want this branch? And maybe maybe I do. This lower branch is perpendicular to the camera in this view, or it's flat onto the camera in this view. This one comes out the front a bit. So in this case, I'm going to keep it, but I'm going to prune back to these little needles here and see what happens, see if a new shoot develops. So I'm going to prune it quite short to a downward facing needle off to here, like that. And we'll see what happens on that branch. If it dies back or if it generates new branching, we'll see. I am going to clean this cut up here. You can see it's sticking out a bit. So I'll come in with the concave pruners and just kind of get it a bit more flush. And you can go quite deep on these because they're a fast-growing species, and any scars on the trunk like this will heal very quickly. So you can see I've made it concave now. So the next big step is to prune this upright leader back. So where to prune it back to? So again, I have these little needles, single needles down here, and then my frond type branching starts up higher. So a safe prune would be to here, keeping some of these fronds. A unsafe pruning would be to cut it back even harder. If I prune it to these fronds up here, it's still pretty tall. It's, you know, taller than I want. This section of the trunk doesn't have much taper. It's pretty cylindrical. I think in this case, like if I prune it here, I will prune it here just for demonstration. So off comes the top, like that. You can see some of that browning at the tips. That was just from lack of water. So let's zoom in now and have a look at my central leader and decide what to do. I know if I leave these fronds on, if I leave it pruned high like this, that I'm going to get new branches coming out from the base of each one of these fronds. And I won't get any branching back down here. I can pretty well guarantee that. If I hard prune it down to here, well, it'll either die back to this branch or it'll send out some new branches from this section. And I am going to, you know, design-wise, I don't want this tall cylindrical section. I'd ideally like to cut it to about here. So I will. I'm going to take a bit of a gamble. I am not an expert in Bald Cypress, but there's only one way to learn. Okay, here I go. Big cut coming up. Taking that off. So there's what I'm left with. And I think I'm going to take this branch back one more section there. Yeah, there's what I'm left with. It's a very two-dimensional tree. But you can see, you know, back here how the scar is healed here nicely. Yeah, and I'm starting to get some good flare at the base here as these roots thicken up. Yeah, it's very exciting developing this tree. So I am going to put some cut paste on the top here, just so it doesn't dry out. So I'm going to use Adam's Magic Cut Paste from Adam from Notion Bonsai in Ireland. And I'm going to apply it to the top of the tree here. Now I could put a bit of wound sealant on here too. I might as well. We'll give this a try. Just like that. So that is all the pruning work I'll be doing on the Bald Cypress today. That was a lot. Here is the Blue Jay Bonsai Carnage Cam. And there was lots of carnage today. Wow. So here's a look at the tree. I'll show you, a few angles of it. It's come a long way from when I first got it, but it has a long, long way to go. I'm pruning the tree at this time of the year because there's still a little bit of time left in the growing season, and that will allow all these wounds to kind of seal up and heal a little bit. And it should also give time to generate the start of some buds at the base of some of those needles. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. And if I had waited until, winter or early spring to prune it, it would bleed a lot, and it would take a while for those buds to develop, if they do at all. So I think right about now is a good time to do this. I'm hoping, and this is just based on my experience with other trees. So we'll see what the results are of this pruning in the future. I don't think this tree, there's no danger of it dying or anything, but I may not get, shoots where I want them. We will certainly see. I'll put the Bald Cypress back in its tray of water outside. Way down here, and it's right beside my Dawn redwood here. So there's the tray of water that they sit in, so they stay nicely hydrated. So here's my Dawn redwood, and it is also growing like incredible. It's got good taper, good branching. Yeah, so I'm just going to look at the roots growing out the drainage holes. Grow until fall, and when the needles fall off in winter, I'll prune it up. Another tree that has grown very, very large is my Weeping Willows. And you can see, they're really tall. And it's too big to put away for winter storage. So willows, they say, after kind of midsummer you shouldn't prune them. But what can you do? I did prune them kind of midsummer, and now they've grown into these giant things. So I don't want to put a giant tree away in the polyhouse for the winter, so I am going to prune it up today. And if I get dieback, I get dieback. It's just something that has to be done. Here's a look at my willow. This was from Josh of the Toronto Bonsai Society. He gave me this willow. So it needs cutting back for sure. Oh dear. I think it's blue scissors time. I think I'm just going to come in and prune to a profile. And then whatever dies back, dies back. It won't kill the tree, but it gets it in shape. Pretty thick branches to be cutting with the blue scissors, but tis done. Yeah, so that's got it into a reasonable height and everything. So I think now I will come in and do a little directional pruning, based on my cuts with the blue scissors. Clean up the ends of the branches. And, if this isn't good for the tree, well, we'll know why the tree's suffering from this pruning late in the season. Willows are hard to keep healthy long term, I find. In the ground they're easy, but in a pot, I don't know. Everyone I've had kind of eventually loses vigor. There's a few small branches growing the inside here I'm going to remove. Just clean out the structure a bit. So this is my highest branch on the tree. After the big cut here, even though I sealed it, it still died back quite a bit. So that'll be kind of my main canopy, and the rest of all these branches will be more kind of lower branches on the tree. So this one I've got kind of an upright section here. So I probably don't want these ones on the inside here, because these will eventually be lower branches, these back ones. Okay, I think that's good. I think it's pruned up. It could certainly use a bit of weeding too. But that might come in spring when I repot it. Now that's a carnage cam. Look at all those willow branches. So I'll clean up and get the next tree in. Here's a look at my other weeping willow. You can see it's as tall as the roof of the greenhouse here. So I'm going to have to cut it back. These are just weeds on this side. I had another smaller weeping willow, but it didn't make it. So you can see the smaller one here. Yeah, it just didn't make it, that one. Even like some of this one, you can see some of these branches kind of lost vigor. Yeah, willows are difficult to keep in pots. And this is sitting in a tray of water also. So I'm just going to prune off the tallest shoots, which is this one right here. So you can see how tall that shoot was. And this one to here, this one to here, this one to here. And I think that's it. I don't want to get too aggressive on this one because it's a smaller tree. It's probably a little weaker. Yeah. So we've done the hard pruning on the other one and pretty soft pruning on this one. So we'll see how each tree does in spring. Here's a look at the tree now. So it's a little more compact, but not real compact. There's a look at the trunk on it. So it's not a real old tree or anything. And here's what I took off. You can see there's the branches, and there's a lot of fine little branches trying to grow out of that branch too. Interesting. Yeah, so we'll see how it does. I'll see which tree does better in spring, the one I hard pruned back or the one that I've kind of soft pruned here. Time will tell. It's kind of funny here. My one maple started turning colors. And I thought, oh, I might get some nice fall colors on this tree. And look at it now. I've got leaves that kind of turned a funny brown black color. You know, the leaves aren't horrible looking, but certainly not spectacular fall colors. So yeah, I had high hopes for some nice fall colors here, and reality was a little different. It's time now for today's updates, and my first update is my Willow Leaf Ficus. It was getting quite bushy, and I pruned it back using the blue scissors, hoping that it would grow back in before showtime, and it's doing that now. You can see all the new growth on top is looking really good. It's quite dense. All the leaves are a nice color. They're all healthy. So this morning I did a little work on it. I went in, because I pruned it with the blue scissors, there was a few leaves that were cut in half by the blue scissors. So I went in and I pruned out all the leaves that didn't look good, that were cut in half, or ones that were malformed or just not looking good. And I cleaned it. I weeded the tree. I cleaned up the moss a bit. There were a few new shoots growing in that I pruned away. So I just did kind of a general cleanup work on it before the show season. And I think it's looking quite nice. This tree will develop, you know, a lot more in the future. It's a very young tree. And yeah, it's still got a long way to go before it's kind of a big mature Willow Leaf Ficus. But it's a good start, I think. Here's a close-up look at the Willow Leaf Ficus. So you can see the structure of it. Yeah, it's come a long way from when I first got it, that's for sure. In the corner here is my Brazilian rain tree. You can probably see it in the background of a lot of the videos. And you can see how rapidly it's growing right now. Incredible. So what I'm doing, I'm letting it grow until it needs to come in for the winter. So it's going to get very, very long, these branches. And that's a typical rule with training these, is that you let the branches grow until they start to get a bit woody, and then you prune it back. It kind of keeps the tree healthy. You know, right now the tree's getting lots of energy from the sun, and yeah, if you keep them pruned all the time, they kind of get a little weak. So let them grow like this, wait till the branches start to get a little woody, then prune them back. So that's what I'll do, and we'll see how it looks before it comes in for the winter. It certainly won't be this big because it won't fit in the plant room. Here's another example of not so nice fall colors. And it may be because we haven't had any frosts or cold temperatures lately. It's been really nice at nighttime, really warm in the day. Like today it's 28 degrees Celsius, and it goes down to about 13, 14 at night. So, you know, coolish, but not cold. So yeah, so I get kind of the weaker leaves turn yellow first, and some have already kind of dropped off. So you don't get that consistent. If you get hit by a frost, kind of everything goes yellow all at once. But this year, because we haven't had any frost yet, that, yeah, everything's just kind of slowly turning fall colors, and they don't look so good. So it will be interesting in the fall shows to see what the fall colors are looking like this year. If they're good, or maybe it's just my trees that don't look so good, I don't know. It's getting towards the end of the day, so I'll have to go through the trees, make sure they're all watered before it gets dark out. I've got a big dragonfly in the greenhouse here. Oh dear, I hope he makes it out. I got a cloth and grabbed the tail of the dragonfly and took it outside the greenhouse, and it flew away, so that was nice. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.